Hi there, everyone. Welcome to another Gold and Silver Standard Insights brought to you by Ainslie Bullion. My name is Joe. This is where we discuss the day's economic news, and we sometimes do wonderful interviews. Happens to be just such an occasion. Of course, as always, we have Chris Tipper. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Joe.
And joining us today is Alex Hutchinson. She's our guest, who is a director of one of Australia's largest precious metals refiners. That's Siltec Precious Metals Refining, and the Australian Minting Company, as well as companies in the manufacturing and property spaces. So this sees Alex needing to trade and manage multiple commodities, currencies and markets. And so that allows her to bring a very unique perspective on macro and microeconomic scene and as it affects the precious metals, but also as I guess we could call it a ground truthing of what's happening in the economy today. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you. That's a very nice introduction, Joe.
No problem.
Great to have you here, Alex. And thanks, Joe. So the written news today was all about global debt. It's certainly not a new problem, something that's sometimes gets ignored, however, or pushed away because it builds up slowly in the background until it becomes so large and all-encompassing that it really has us all trapped. And unfortunately, that's where we find ourselves today, and that's what the news was talking about. So the article sort of mentioned three ways out of this trap. The first way is that you need to earn more money than you spend, which makes sense. If we continue to grow the economy at a faster pace than the impact of the debt, then that solves the problem. But globally, at the moment, we're in a recession, despite what certain parties seem to be saying, or regardless, growth is slowing very rapidly. So it takes a long time to recover. So that's not really a viable option. The second option it presented was that we can write off debt. And people like to think of the idea of a debt jubilee, but this really isn't going to happen anytime soon, because that would ultimately mean the US giving up the reserve currency status of the US dollar. So no superpower is going to willingly give that up. So the third solution is to try and inflate the problem away by pushing government debt down onto the people. And this is a path that every government using a fiat currency has chosen throughout history. And we find ourselves there once again. So it didn't work every other time, but who knows, maybe this time it's different. That seems to be the thinking. So in my opinion, we eventually end up in a major currency crisis of one form or another when we can no longer kick the can further down the road. So the real question is whether we've arrived there yet, or whether we get a reprieve due to the unique set of circumstances that have sort of led us to this crisis point that we're at today. So I suppose, Alex, the first thing I'd love to know and to get your opinion on is how you see this current debt crisis. How do you assess sort of the current state of the growing debt and the falling GDP? And is this something we should be worried about, or is it just a transitory, they like to use that word, transitory blip on the radar, as many would like us to believe?
So if Joe just pulls up that graph from the Ainslie article today, if you actually look at the debt, so pre-COVID in 2018, the debt, US debt was sitting at about 18 trillion with a GDP of 20.6 trillion. So if you look at that on the graph, that's sitting at about 87% was where it was sitting in 2018. Then you had this COVID massive increase in debt, which was about $10 trillion. And we're now sitting at a ratio of about 135%. I don't think that quite reflects it, because the US government has obviously just approved the climate bill, which is going to add another $500 billion to their expenditure.
Solving inflation by piling a lot more money onto the inflation pile makes a lot of sense, really, doesn't it?
Well, really, the US government is running a different. They are trying to get themselves out of a recession, and the Fed is trying to do their job, which is to maintain inflation at the 2 to 3% and maximize employment. Now, the only way they can control this is by raising interest rates, and the only way the US government can control what they're doing is to start spending more money. So it's becoming a bit of a debt spiral.
Push and pull on the same, absolutely. Push and pull on the same issue doesn't really add up. So what are you sort of thinking with that in mind, with the current inflation we're experiencing? Obviously, COVID has had an impact on that, right? It's a sort of unexpected shock to the system. What's your sort of take on how COVID has played into that over the last few years?
Well, I guess if you look at inflation and specifically material inflation over the last 3 years, what has been going on is people have been taking money for goods. And there, as we all know, there's been shortages, there's chip shortages, silicon shortages, building material shortages, but these companies have still been taking money for these goods. And what has happened is that has driven prices up. And then more recently, in around 2021, when this inflation really started lifting, was the shortages started easing because manufacturers could start providing goods. And this then blocked up all the shipping channels. So in Australia, for example, our normal freight levy for petrol is about 5%, and it's been 40%. And definitely that levy is because of petrol prices, but it's also due to the scarcity of trucks and ships. So these prices of these physical goods have inflated. But at some point, this stops. Like someone gave me an example yesterday. I need a new computer. And they said, go look at Lenovo. Now, Lenovo at the moment has 50% off all of their computers. Everyone is overstocked. And this overstocking now is going to start driving the prices back down, I believe. So the inflationary pressure on goods that we had previously is going to start easing, and I'd say rapidly.
So we've really got that sort of glut coming off the back of all that pent up demand that then turned into pent up supply, I suppose. So I suppose the other part of that I'm interested in, and I'm particularly interested in your opinion on, is the labour market. The labour market on Friday, we had those numbers out of the US that are actually sort of a bit of a problem in a way, because they give permission to the Fed to continue on this rate raising cycle when you see higher than expected employment growth. So that's going to impact us here. I mean, all central banks around the world, they're on this rate hike bandwagon. But the employment numbers look good on paper, but they don't really stack up for me. And we talked a little bit about this yesterday in the insight, or the last insights on Monday, where we're sort of saying there's people who have more than one job, for example, or different things that don't really add up. What are your thoughts on why we're experiencing such a tight labour market right now? And do you think there's a bit more to the story as well?
Well, I mean, with the inflation on the materials, talking about the Fed, that is just out of control. That is being generated by COVID, and it is something that will ease over time. So to be looking at inflation as a driver for what the Fed's doing seems a bit crazy when there has been a COVID effect. And the same thing has happened in the labour market, but in a bit of a different way. So what you've seen in the labour market is three things going on. The participation rate is dropping, and it has been dropping since the 1990s due to baby boomers and people taking on less work, people working part-time more. So since COVID, the participation rate has dropped 2 to 3%. So if you were to throw that participation back into the employment numbers, unemployment numbers, we'd be at 5 to 6%. So
which is a big jump higher.
A big jump than what they're reporting. And then the second thing that is happening is COVID is still around. I mean, in our company, we are constantly having scarcity of employment because people get COVID all the time and they're off sick. In fact, one of our staff at the moment, we believe, may have caught it a second time in 4 weeks.
Wow.
Now, we have to fill his job. So it's not like we can't not pay him. We have to fill his job and continue going. So we now need more staff. So the sick leave and people are taking holidays now, and they haven't been able to take holidays for years. So the balance sheet liability that's sitting there is being eaten up by staff at the moment, which is reasonable. So you've got that happening as well, more staff for less output. And then the third thing that is happening is a little bit like what has happened with products. Over the COVID period, I mean, how many credits do I have for planes that I didn't catch, or restaurants that I had to cancel? So a lot of companies have, possibly incorrectly, but from an accounting point of view, recorded it as a GDP item, and now they're having to deliver it with a finite resource, which is labour. So all these credits that they have, they've already taken the money, they've already reported the GDP, and now they need to actually deliver the service with labour that they now need to get. Now, again, because labour is a finite input, whereas materials are generally easier, it'll take a longer time to work back through the system. But when it does, it'll fall off a cliff, just like inflation will on goods. That's what I believe anyway.
And that makes a lot of sense, because if it's compressed and we're seeing, I mean, we've talked about that a little bit as well. We've got a real, fastest rate rising cycle in history sort of stuff happening. And then when you're talking about this sort of compression, everything's happening at a really sped up, in a sped up pace. It's not easy to predict, because that can happen very quickly, and that's where you get your fall off a cliff moment, I suppose.
And that's why the productivity and GDP are dropping, because the GDP's been previously recorded, and now we're having to deliver on
backwards looking numbers. Yeah, a real problem. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Joe, did you have?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, to Joe.
Yeah, Joe, did you have, I think you had some question.
We did, yes. We had a question come in from Patrick H. And of course, he sent that into insights@goldsilverstandard.com. So if anyone else has questions for the Daily News, send them to insights@goldsilverstandard.com. But Patrick H. asks, based on this morning's news, is there a chance of this debt spiral continuing, so much so that we end up with governments defaulting on their liabilities? And if so, what does this do to the price of gold? That's from Patrick H.
So do you want to answer? Do you want to start, Chris, with that one?
Well, I'm very interested in your opinion on this, but I'll say what I think. I think that ultimately, the idea of a government default doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I think that governments, by their nature, will do everything possible before defaulting. Inflation is kind of a default by stealth. That's what they're attempting to do. They're attempting to devalue or undermine the purchasing power of the currency that inflates the debt away. So I think default is a last resort sort of option, and certainly a country like the United States wouldn't do that when they have the reserve currency. What worries me, however, is that ultimately the currency crisis that they create has other countries splitting away from the US dollar, simply because they're going, well, we're not going to import all that inflation, we're not going to bear the brunt of that pain any longer, and the only really way they can do that is to break ties away from the US dollar being the reserve currency. So that's my sort of take on it. And in terms of what that does for gold, I mean, any hint of that happening, the gold price just is off like a rocket. So certainly something you need to watch. But I think an actual default would be way down the line, and they would try everything they could possibly do before that would be allowed to happen.
Well, they've been allowed to kick the can down the road for 25 years, so 15 years. So who's to say that they can't just keep kicking? But where to from here? The GDP now, if you look at the interest rate pre-COVID, was 2.5%, and their interest payments now on 1.75%, which is the current rate, would actually be $1 trillion more with a dropping GDP. So
it's crazy, isn't it? Because people, it's like they can't do that basic maths to realize. I still have conversations with people saying, "Oh, but this isn't high interest rates. You know, that they need to go higher." We had them at 18% at their peak, or 20%, whatever the number was. And I go, but you don't understand the base. It's not the same scenario. That's not how the maths works.
That's right. With a base of $10 billion and an 18% interest rate, it's a little bit different to 32 trillion and a 1.7% interest rate. So who knows how they're going to get out of this one.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. That is an excellent, insightful insights. Thank you so much, Alex Hutchinson. And thank you, Chris. Any final comments before we do the wrap up?
Look, I believe gold and silver are going to go up. I've noticed silver lately, the gold-silver ratio creeping back down again, which is usually a really good indicator of what's going on. The non-farm payroll on Friday took everyone by surprise, but it was less than 24 hours before the market recovered and, in fact, reversed what it was doing. So people are starting to see through what's going on a lot faster than what they were, which is only going to be positive for gold and silver.
Absolutely, and I agree with all of that. And I suppose my final comment is it's great to have you on here, Alex. I hope we can get you back again to keep continuing with this discussion, because at the moment, with things the way they are, there's new information every day. With every data print, effectively, it changes the dynamic, and there's more for us to look at. So I'm very keen to continue this discussion as we go.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's been great fun. It is a bit of a passion thing that I like to look and research all of this stuff, so I really appreciate it.
No problem. Once again, thank you so much, Alex, and thanks again, Chris. We will see you, of course, next GSS Insights, which is tomorrow. GSS Insights happens Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So again, if you have your questions, send them into insights@goldsilverstandard.com. And also, I'll just quickly share the screen right here. So you can also head over to the Discord channel, which is discord.gg/gold, and that's where we can continue the conversation. And I'll post this GSS Insights video right here. So a great little community to be a part of if you're familiar with Discord, and if you're not, hop onto the Discord channel. And of course, head over to goldsilverstandard.com, because that's bringing gold and silver into the digital world. Thanks so much, Alex. Thanks, Chris. And as we always say at the end of GSS Insights, balance your wealth in an unbalanced world. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Joe. See ya.